The funding for this video is provided by the amazing members of our Patreon. Also contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. Yeah, I started from PBS Kids. What you gonna do? Fight me? Anyway, roll the video. Do you ever come across a piece of media that you feel like you are expected to like? Because everyone around you likes said project, where it gets to the point where people are surprised that you don't like it? Oh, you thought this was gonna be a video about Twitches? Oh, that's fucking funny, bitch.
That's fucking funny, bitch.
It's a fucking video about Luster by Leilani. Fuck 4th of July. By the way, it's a joke, y'all. It's a joke. Okay, anyway. But this video isn't about Twitches. Mostly. It's gonna come back up though. It's about Luster by Leilani, a book that is a New York Times bestseller. And oh, I can't stand it. And word on the street is that it's going to be turned into an HBO series. Oh fuck. So you know, on this channel, my work mainly focuses on animation as a whole, but nostalgia and family and children's entertainment. Every so often, there's an adult property that intrigues me, and I just have to talk about it. Because this book right here pissed me off in the worst ways possible. But for some reason, I felt invalidated with my opinions on this book. The first being that this book is a New York Times bestseller. Then I remember those new Teen Titans comics I can't stand were also written by a New York Times bestseller author. The second had to do with popular book bloggers praising this book. And the third had to do with the fact that the author of this book is a black woman. I did not want people to get the assumption that I was being hateful towards her because of my frustration with this book. I didn't want it to come off as envy either because I hate that shit. The world we live in is hard enough on black women, so I try my best to keep my ill feelings towards any of them at a minimum now. Not saying that I have ill feelings towards Leilani, it's just my frustrations with the book she made. I went back and reread an essay from the essay collection Black Nerd Problems that had to do with this. Proud Mary brings into focus the question we steeply approach. What exactly do we do with art that may or may not rise to excellence when black people are behind it? Is it a loaded scenario? For sure. If the movie is filled with predominantly black people coming out with too much hype and is terrible, a simple dismissal of the film isn't the resolution. If black art fails, we don't have the luxury to question the production alone. Was it sabotage? Was it unfairly marketed? Did it tank because it wasn't catered enough to the white gaze? Is there a penalty to black authenticity? All of these may sound like conspiracy when raffled off in this way, but there are concrete reasons for the skepticism. We've seen these things happen before, so we are reluctant to trust the system of fair review for things we either do enjoy or really want to enjoy. But if we consider the fact that it may not be good, whether it be Proud Mary or Gabrielle Union's Breaking In or Paula Patton's Traffic with the hard K no less, that released later that year, when it disappoints, well, what is our responsibility then? What is omnipresent is what we collectively fear as worst case scenario. There is a possibility that if Proud Mary, the action film debut that was produced by and stars our beloved Taraji, is bad, that the possibility may never come up for her and others like her again. We drown in the sea of white mediocrity every day. How many NCIS shows are there now? But we are all too aware of how easily black stars and their ventures get benched if they don't succeed. At the same time that black art doesn't need to be monolithic in its content, neither does it need to be its quality and output. I am not an advocate for more bad or uninspiring art in the world, but I also believe that not all art has to be all things to all people, and this is mostly true. But the stakes for black art that doesn't hit a particular greatness threshold always feels at risk of being reduced to scarcity or being critiqued for not doing more. Not every black movie needs to justify its existence by being Moonlight. But not every black moviegoer should feel they have to go to every black movie just to keep black movies being made either. And I calmed down a bit. Then I had to remember that I don't really care what people think of me, because if someone wants to dislike me for not liking a book that they like, that's not my problem. Book reviews are more so for the reader, not the author all that much anyway. And as much as I wanted to like this book because of the high praise it received from well-known people such as Emily Ratajkowski, Amory, Emma Roberts, and Kaya Gerber, I could not bring myself to do so. Like Dua Lipa, yes, the Dua Lipa, even read it. This book has reached so many famous and affluent people that it's not even funny. And the main reason I picked it up is because Emily Ratajkowski was talking about it on her podcast, the episode where she was recommending books. This is coming from someone who simply grew up hating things because everyone liked them. And as I have outgrown that phase, it has caused me to be very hesitant when I don't like something that everyone likes. But that more so has to do with not everything being made for me. Not everything is going to be catered to me individually, and I'm fine with that. And if people want to get on here and talk about how much they don't like Colleen Hoover's books and how they irritate the hell out of them and her books still have 4-star ratings on Goodreads, then by all means, I should be allowed to talk about my personal opinions on media too. I often tell people to take what I say with a grain of salt because I want them to form their own opinions when it comes to art. That being said, take everything I say about luster with a grain of salt.
It's my scene, you know what
I'm a mouse, duh. Hey y'all, it's Harriana back with another video. Hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Harriana and welcome to or welcome back to The Pirate Ship, also known as Harry Hook's Pirate Ship. I am the captain, you are not my first mate, and I've got the first mate because you want to know why? Bring your ear closer to the speaker so you can hear me clearly. Nobody's worthy of being the first mate, but hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Harriana and I like to make content based on nostalgia and family and children's entertainment and all the issues that I find within those spaces. We're still going to be talking about some animation and some properties from things that I watched when I was younger to tie into today's video to help prove my point about my frustrations with this book. Before we go any further, Happy New Year. Blessed to see another year. Now let's get started, because what exactly is Luster by Raven Leilani? Before we can go any further with all of what I have to fucking say, y'all need to know what happened in the damn book. So yeah, here we go. Luster is a book that focuses on a woman named Edie. She is 23 and she lives in New York City. She basically be going through it all the time. She works at a publishing company and she has started a romantic and sexual relationship with a man who is much older than her. He is white. By the way, that is actually very important to the storyline. But the more the book goes on, the more we get to learn a little bit more about Edie, I'd say, because this book is just about her. I wouldn't necessarily say that this book really had like a plot or anything like that. It did, but yeah. Anyway. The more we get to learn about Edie, we realize that she is just kind of like a despicable human being. She is a hot ass mess. We find out that she has no friends. She doesn't necessarily get along well with her roommate, on top of the fact that they barely clean their damn apartment. And the white man that she is dating, his name is Eric. And this relationship that she has with him, it is an open one because his wife agreed to, you know, let him, you know, go and find like another partner on the side. It's very obvious that his wife is not comfortable with this relationship that he is having with Edie, but she agrees to it anyway. Long story short, Edie, that man, wife, and that man, all three of them are extremely unlikable. I didn't give a fuck about any of them. So moving forward, we get to learn a little bit more about Edie, and I'm sorry if it feels like I'm bouncing all over the place because this book did that a bit. It just bounced all over the place. I don't even know how to begin with this, but we find out that she basically is sucking and fucking everybody in her office building. Like literally sleeping around with all the men. And what makes it worse is that she's doing this at work. But on top of the fact that she's doing this at work, she's also very, like, it's very difficult for people to work with her because she does things that are very, very out of the ass. Like, there's just so much to that contribute to her getting fired, because in the end, like in the middle of the book, she gets fired from this place, and it's actually very well deserved, because it's not like she like messed around with 1 or 2 people at the office. I'm pretty sure she messed around with about like 8 of them, and it just didn't work because she didn't get along well with the women in the office either, and pretty much she was just trying to get with all the men. Oh god. But like I said, it was beyond her being difficult to get along with, and then she's also messing around with everybody. She was watching porn on the work computer, like looking up very inappropriate things on the work computer and whatnot. So it was very much warranted for her to go and get fired. All right, so we find out more on her about Eric. He's boring white dude, whatever. His wife, she works as like an embalming, I don't know, she works with like dead corpses or whatever. First of all, every person in this book just felt like a damn caricature, but like I said, this is a book summary first. We will get into my critiques later. But moving forward, she ends up living with Eric and his wife. I literally forgot his wife's name. Her name's Rebecca, by the way. She ends up living with them because after Edie gets fired, she is basically evicted from her apartment, and her roommate that she had at the time ended up moving out and moving in with her boyfriend. So she moves in with Eric and his wife, but also they have an adoptive daughter. Her name is Akila. Now, it is very important to note that Akila doesn't know how to do her hair, but it's also important to note that the adopted daughter is black, because part of the reason why Rebecca allowed Edie to come and live in her and Eric's home has to do with the fact that they didn't know how to bond with that girl. They most definitely didn't. They didn't bother to try to get to know her or anything like that. They thought like buying her very materialistic things was a way to, you know, do good for her. But no, like they did not take the time to get to know the daughter. They didn't even try to learn how to do her hair or anything like that. So they basically kind of made Edie like their mammy. She basically came to their house, was taking care of the kid, but she also was cleaning the house. She was cleaning the home. Also, it's important to note that Edie is a painter, and she starts finding her love for painting all over again. It's boring. It's frustrating. She's messing around with Eric. She's going around with his wife and running errands with him. She takes her to work sometimes. She's bonding with the daughter. Next thing we know, Eric ends up having an emergency when him and Edie are together in a motel room, and Rebecca's like, yeah, Edie, you're gonna have to get out my damn house. So she kicks Edie out, but she gives Edie like a month, I'd say, to get her shit together. Edie finds another job. Rebecca helps her move out. Her and Akila say their farewells, they say goodbye, and then that's just the end of the book. What the hell was that? We're going to get into it. For the most part, Luster is a book that is about blackness in America. As much as they tried to say that this book is about a black woman having a relationship with an older white man, so much of the book was just like, oh yeah, racism exists, this shit happens, that shit happens, being a black woman is stressful. And yes, I most definitely agree. And maybe it's a personal thing. Maybe I am just tired of books about being black in America. Being black is stressful enough. We have to deal with so much. So oftentimes when I come to literature, I low-key want to escape that. And I'm not sitting here and saying that these things shouldn't exist in our media. One thing, the main reason I brought that up is because I notice often when white people are praising black authors for their books, usually these books are ones that have to focus on the subject of being black. And I truly feel like that is where so much of that praise comes from, because I know a lot of white people, especially like white leftists, they most definitely want to do better about understanding people of color. They want to do better about understanding people of color who aren't like them. But y'all do know, like when it comes to fiction, y'all can engage with much more stuff than just stories that are just about being black and the hardships of that. But it just got frustrating because we're told that this book is about Edie and her relationship with Eric, and then we find out the relationship was about her and her getting along with his family or whatever the fuck. But every so often the books just come out of nowhere and just talks about blackness in America, talks about what it's like to be black and this and that and the third. And there's even a part where like the N-word is just randomly said out of nowhere, and it just pissed me off because I was like confused. It like threw me off. People were saying that this book was funny, and yeah, I did chuckle every now and then, but then the humor started to become very annoying because it focus heavily on the subject of self-deprecation. Self-deprecating jokes get on my nerves. I can't no more. I used to think that shit was funny when I was like 18 years old, when I was really going through it, but now I'm like, no. And it's weird because I even said something about how I felt like I would have liked this book a lot when I was a teenager because of the edgy sense of humor and the way it went about things in it. Because also this book has so much out of the ass shit happen in it, because there's a part where Rebecca takes Edie to like a mosh pit with her and she like takes her bra off and throws it on the stage. And then there's also a part where she has Edie like dye her hair for her. And then there's also a part where Rebecca makes a really unappetizing cake at her wedding anniversary. And also at that same part of the wedding anniversary, Edie breaks into the damn house. We're going to get on that subject. Put a pin on that. There were just so many frustrations that I had with this book, not mainly because I felt like the story was bouncing all over the place, but as I mentioned earlier, this book was just doing everything that it could to just come off as edgy. And when I say edgy, it's just like, ooh, this is different, ooh, this is cool, ooh, this is quirky, ooh, this is funny. And it just got really stale, but guess what? I should have known this, because y'all want to know where Edie and Eric's first date was? Six Flags. You want to know how the book opens? It's about her having inappropriate relationships with her co-workers in the office. For the most part, Edie is a very, very flawed woman. Very, very flawed black woman. And it got to a certain point where I stopped feeling bad for her. And there was a certain point in the story where I just stopped feeling bad for everyone. The only person that I had sympathy for in the end was Akilah. And I'm gonna mention it because there are so many things that Edie does here that just, I'm just like, I can't, you're not redeemable for me anymore here. You fail to realize that you are everything that is wrong with you. Like, you know that scene from BoJack Horseman when Todd told him about his damn self? That's exactly how I feel about Edie. Like, I got so irritated with this. And I know that Raven Leilani, the author herself, said something about how she allows her like characters to be like unreliable, the protagonist. But here's the deal. I'm just gonna sit here and give you guys a brief rundown of so much of the horrible and just concerning things that Edie did, and you'll understand why it was difficult for me to feel bad for her. And then I'm gonna bring up two other properties where I feel like this was handled a little bit much better and why. As we mentioned, Edie caused all the problems in her workplace herself. She most definitely did. She did all of that to herself. A lot of the workplace storyline had to do with the fact that she was one of the few black women that worked in that office. And I think she was one of the few black people, period, that worked in that office. But long story short, she was cutting up at work, like cutting the fuck up at work. She was not behaving whatsoever. So one, that's the main thing right there. Edie breaks into Eric and Rebecca's home and she goes into their fridge and like takes their food. And this just so happened to magically be on the day of their wedding anniversary. And it's just like, their wedding anniversary party specifically. Edie constantly is like, it's weird because she self-deprecates about herself and then she's over here talking about how nice her titties are. And I wouldn't necessarily say that was a bad thing, but it just frustrated me because she often used her looks as a way to tear down like other women, because she often talked about how she was much more attractive than Rebecca and that's why her man wanted her and would rather be with her instead of her. It was just, Speaking of that, there's a scene where Edie like watches Eric and Rebecca like, like without their consent. Like she did like shit like that throughout the story, just staring at people when like it was just like, man, what you doing? What's going on? There's a part where she breaks into Akilah's bedroom and she like starts going through her things and she starts reading her fan fictions. Like, I'm pretty sure it was a Batman fan fiction that Akilah was writing, and then Akilah snapped on her and was like, what the fuck are you doing? Valid. And then oftentimes with Akilah, there would be times where she would be thinking of the most inappropriate things while she was around her, talking about, oh yeah, your dad likes this, that, and that with me. And I'm just like, Edie, be quiet, please. You're making it really, really freaking difficult to like you and feel bad for you. And there's also another part in the story where Edie does have a miscarriage. She gets pregnant by Eric, but then that's another thing that just really frustrated me because I said something about how Edie lacks self-awareness. She most definitely lacks self-awareness because she even mentioned that she was gonna go get an abortion. And then she just decided to like, no, I'm gonna keep this baby with this man. And I'm just like, But like, why were y'all not using protection in the first place? That's on both of them, first of all. That most definitely was on both of them. And it was another thing that frustrated me because I'm pretty sure she was aware of Eric's sensitivity to alcohol. Mind you, he is most definitely a grown-ass man. He can't take responsibility for his own actions. But it's just very frustrating how she was aware of how alcohol was really, really bad for him. And she just like let him drink and drink and drink and drink and drink and not even mention it to him. Mind you, like I said, he's a grown man. He can make his decisions himself. That was not her responsibility. But I found it very concerning how she didn't even say much of anything about it. And then there's also a part where Eric like puts his hands on her. He basically says, I want to hit you. And she's like, yes, hit me. Go ahead, beat me. So she like enjoys being like beat up on by him. Oh, girl. And like, she had a really hard life. We end up learning about her childhood. We end up learning about the difficulties that she had with her mother and her father. But it's just so difficult to feel bad for her because she feels like because she has went through so much in her life that she can get away with treating people horribly and not have to, you know, abide by anybody else's means. The boundaries were not here with her. And if you guys read my blog post on my website, I even talked about like the worst books that I had read because there was so much of my frustrations with this main character that I just felt disgusted at the end of reading this. Like, my stomach was hurting. I was just like, I didn't get it. Did I just not get it? Did we not read the same book? Huh? I'm very much confused at the moment. Hey, editing me here. This was something that I really wanted to talk about in the video, but I forgot to clip it in here. When it comes to Akilah, there is an entire scene of where she is brutalized by the police. And this scene just simply frustrated me because overall, I felt like this was one of those black pain books. And like I said, I am not a person that thinks black pain stories shouldn't exist. I just feel like that there is a way to go about them. But this situation right here just felt extremely out of the story, if that makes sense, because the people in that neighborhood were fully aware that Akilah lives with Eric and Rebecca. And then next thing you know, there was something going on in the neighborhood where one of the neighbor's dogs was just basically K-worded. So they were like investigating, trying to figure things out and whatnot. And they were like, who are you? Who is this black girl? And then next thing you know, she starts getting brutalized by the police. And I'm just like, this book, like, I saw this when I was reading the reviews, but somebody else said something about how this book found a way to throw all the tropes that we see in black pain stories into one. And I most definitely agree with this because this was like one of the last few like very agonizing things to happen in the story. And I was just like, she literally has to live with the fact that she got tackled by the police now. And I am somebody that was tackled by the police when I was younger. Like, not tackled, but I've had the police put their hands on me when I was younger. That is not something that just needs to be taken lightly. It's like she gets tackled by the police, and the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, that happened. Okay, I'm allowed to be mad. Let's move forward. No, absolutely not. There are many moments in this book where I felt like things could have been handled much better, but I really think the police brutality scene was not well done. And then also there is something that I mentioned in that blog post. There is a scene where I said like Edie was constantly doing things that made her very irredeemable in my opinion. She constantly was doing horrible things, not taking responsibility for her actions, lack of accountability, lack of realizing that she cannot get away with doing whatever the fuck she wanted in this world. There is a part where she takes Akilah out of school early. She picks her up early and they go shoplifting. Like she encourages her to shoplift. And that really like just ticked me off. There were so many things that Edie was doing in the story that were really pissing me off, especially to think about her watching porn on the work computer. But that moment right there was where I was just like, you literally encouraged her to steal? No. And like I said, main characters, especially main characters that are black women in our literature, they are allowed to make bad decisions. We make bad decisions, we fuck up, we make mistakes. It happens, that's natural, we're human. But it got to a point where I'm just like, you constantly have your main character making all these bad decisions. Do you not want me to feel bad for her or not? Because when I came across so much of what Raven Leilani was talking about with this book, it's as if she wanted us to have sympathy for this character. But I'm like, if you wanted us to have that sympathy, you should not have made her extremely unlikable. And I understand we talk about the the unlikable woman trope and things like that and whatever, but it gets to a certain point where that unlikable woman has to realize that she's the problem with so many things in her life, and she'll do better. Edie did not improve on any of her behavior at the end of the book, and guess what? If anything, her behavior got worse. Okay, so also on my blog where I made a post talking about things from last year that I really did like, one of those had to be Almost There. It is one of the Disney twisted fairy tale books. Oh my god. Avantika, how did they keep these things up on her? Because this dress is falling. Ugh. Anyway, sorry for the technical difficulties, but this book is basically Princess Tiana making bad decisions. That's literally what it is. That is the best way for me to describe it. Now, why did this book not piss me off as bad as Luster did? And mind you, it had a lot to do with the main character and the bad decisions that they were making. This has nothing to do with my bias towards Princess Tiana. One thing about Princess Tiana, I'm gonna love her regardless. That's my homegirl. Like Howlin' Wolf, my ride or die right there. We're gonna talk about Howlin' Wolf after we done talking about Tiana. Now, why didn't Tiana's bad decisions in this book piss me off nearly as bad as what Edie was doing? Putting my biases aside, guess what? Tiana was still a very redeemable person. I actually wrote this word for word in the notes, and I'm just gonna read it directly the way I put it because I just don't want to fumble it. I said, why did I like Almost There but dislike Luster? It has to do with the main character. I have stated before that I enjoy stories about flawed women, but why did I like Tiana in Almost There much more than I did Edie in Luster? And this isn't about my bias towards Tiana, because no. Yes, Tiana is a character that I grew up with, but that's not the fucking point. It has very little to do with that, because Tiana is redeemable in my opinion. Edie is not. At least she will not be for a while. We can sit here and say that Edie is an unreliable narrator, but at times it felt like the author wanted us to be sympathetic towards Edie, and I could not find the care to do so. And that's probably a personal thing, because I don't like it when people who constantly put themselves in situations that can be avoided. I understand that we are human. I understand that we make mistakes, but this is an ongoing thing. And after Edie did the fourth horrible or gross thing, my sympathy was out the fucking door. The author herself said that Edie is an unreliable narrator, which is not a bad way to write a protagonist. But if she's unreliable, why should I care about her? More specifically, if she's unreliable all the time. Like I said, we are not perfect, we make mistakes, but Edie is just insufferable. There's even a point where she says, men like me until I start talking, and I was like, oh, I most definitely understand why you say that. And mind you, I am somebody that doesn't center men in my life. I'm being extremely transparent about that. I don't care too much for dating or whatever. That's why anytime there is dating discourse going on, I be walking out the door, unless it has to do with fiction, because I just simply don't care too much about the subject. I don't care too much about it, period. But the way Edie just constantly self-deprecated on herself, because she would be like, men don't like me until I talk. And I'm like, oh, are you just talking about things that like catch your interest or whatnot? No, she was fucking rude. And I was like, it's not men that don't like you, Edie. Nobody likes you. It's beyond that. But you're constantly over here trying to get validation from men, and you're not even sitting here and thinking about how your interactions with women are the reason why you're somewhat miserable. With the decisions that Edie was making in the story, it just felt as if she had nothing to live for, and she simply just didn't care anymore. Edie felt as if she could get away with every little last thing she did. With Tiana and Almost There, a lot of the bad decisions that Tiana was doing, she was making those bad decisions as a way to try to help others, not realizing that she was hurting herself in the end. because she ended up making a really, really bad deal. She ended up playing around with freaking voodoo. And by the way, all voodoo is not bad. I am not sitting here and saying that voodoo is bad, but depending on the person that you are working with, you need to keep your cautions up. You need to make sure you know what you are doing. You need to make sure you know what you are getting yourself into. Tiana most definitely did not do that. And when it comes to the subject of magic, you really need to be careful. Tiana was not in the book. She was careful in the movie, but she wasn't here in the book. And Edie and Tiana are both very completely different people. They're both black women, but they're both black women that are making some choices. Interesting choices. Tiana had much more self-awareness than Edie will probably have in the next few years of her life, because she just refused to realize that what she was doing was causing more and more problems with her. Tiana, while she was making these bad decisions, she was aware of it, and she became more and more frustrated with herself because she realized she was wrong. Edie, while she was wrong, did not want to own up to it, and she just kept dancing and dancing around the fact that she was the problem with so much of what was going on in her life. Like I said, black women are allowed to be flawed in media, but with Edie here, I'm just like, I get it, we're not perfect, but at some point, you're gonna have to work on yourself. And like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and say go to therapy, because I understand that is like a very condescending term now that a lot of people have used. It used to be used in good faith, now it is not. But she really had a lot of self-reflection that she needed to do. Like, it was nice to see that she picked painting back up. That was an old hobby of hers. But like, I thought her painting was going to help her become a better person. It didn't. Like I said, Edie is somebody that didn't grow at all in the story. If anything, she got worse in the end. And it is sad that she miscarried. It is sad that a lot of the horrible things that happened to her happened. Like I said, she ended up getting kicked out of her home. Those are like basic human decency things that I felt bad for her on. But after these horrible things would happen to her, it's just like she continued to go on and on and on, self-deprecating, not realizing that she's the main issue here. It has nothing to do with her income. It has nothing to do with what was going on with her body and whatnot. That is not something that I did not have sympathy for Edie on. I did right there, because like I said, that is basic human decency. But she was a fucking bitch. I'm sorry, that's just the best way to put it. She did not care about fixing her personality, and she did not care about fixing her interactions with other people. She was just rude. I'm sorry, but how am I supposed to fully sympathize for a character that just won't show change? Listen, I'm gonna sit here and talk about Miraculous Ladybug, okay? Say what y'all want about how they do horrible redemption arcs, they really do. They're actually really fucking terrible at them. But when they had the redemption arcs, we actually see that the people become better and do better. Here, no. And as I'm on the subject of black female characters that make bad decisions within media, I really wanted to get on here and talk about Monster High 13 Wishes again. And I know that can be a little bit silly for some people, but Monster High 13 Wishes is a film that is very special to me, because the film just focuses on a black girl just trying to figure it out and trying to learn who she is, but she's making really, really bad decisions along the way. This film is the reason why Howling Wolf is my favorite Monster High character. I have an entire video about Howling Wolf coming later this month. Hopefully I can be able to get it finished. But Howling, while she was getting on my nerves in this film, mind you, Howling is much, much younger than Edie. We're just gonna go ahead and say that, but we did see improvements with Howling's behavior in the end. We did see that Howling realized that she was the problem right here. We did see that Howling, was actually aware of herself by the end of it. And it just frustrated me because she was so much younger than Edie, but the story handled like making bad decisions much, much better over here. Mind you, like I said, Monster High 13 Wishes is a family movie. Luster is a new adult novel. I'm pretty sure it is new adult, mainly because of how old the main character is within it. Two completely different things, but they both focus on the subject of the main black female character specifically, making bad mistakes and being extremely flawed. And it was much easier for me to sympathize for Howling in the beginning. And it more so had to do with the fact that Howling had a little bit more community with her. As we knew that Howling wasn't perfect and she said things that she shouldn't have said and done things she shouldn't have done, we did see that there were people in her life that did care for her. Edie, while I found it sad that there weren't really anybody in her life that did care for her until she, like, you know, became friends with Rebecca, and it was a really awkward situation with her and Rebecca, by the way. I like the lack of boundaries, by the way. That was something else that irritated me in this book. There were so many lack of boundaries that went on with her living in Rebecca and Eric's house. I feel like the lack of community that Edie had contributed to her behavior, but also with the lack of community, she was a contribution to that. She refused to do anything about her actions, and that resulted in why all her relationships failed. And I'm not sitting here and talking about her romantic relationships that she had with people. I'm talking about platonic friendships just as well. She did that to herself, because she refused to realize that there are certain things that you cannot do and there are certain things that you cannot say. And I guarantee you that there have been people that have tried to be Edie's friend at some point. They tried to reason with her. They tried to come to an understanding with her, but she just wouldn't sit and realize that she couldn't act the way she did if she wanted to be in community with people. While Howling was as unhinged as she was in 13 Wishes, she did come around to realizing that she did have a support system there, and if she wanted to keep those people around, she was going to have to make adjustments to her behavior. I know when it comes to the subject of blackness and our media, we can be a bit hard on it. We can be, you know, a lot more harsher on black media than we are on white media. That's part of the reason why I love that essay so much from the essay collection Black Nerd Problems that I read to you guys in the beginning of this video, because I truly did feel for it. There have been numerous times where there are black properties that have come out that I most definitely wasn't feeling. And I'm not sitting here talking about black led only projects. I'm talking about projects that are led by people that are mixed, biracial, half black, and that would have to be Twitches. Twitches are movies that I think are very freaking mediocre. I don't like either of those films. And then when I found out they were based on books, and when I went there and I skimmed through the book, I realized that I just simply didn't like this story. It had nothing to do with Twitches being a movie led by women of color. It had nothing to do with that. It just had to do with the fact that the story itself just wasn't it for me. I personally wasn't feeling it. There is tons and tons of black media out here, and you just have to find the one that works for you. Luster just so happens not to be that story for me. But also, I found it very, very interesting, and this is part of the reason why I decided to get on here and make this video, is because I noticed that because this book was getting such high praise from very affluent people, like I mentioned in the beginning of this book, and I'm not this book, this video, but Tessa Thompson herself, she is the one that is like behind the production of Luster. I have not heard any news, by the way, if that production has started up or whatnot. It's gonna be HBO, by the way, so I already know what to expect from that live action adaptation. I felt very frustrated and I felt very conflicted about this book getting an adaptation, but also because I felt as if, like I said, did I just not understand this film? Did I just not understand this book in its entirety? And then, you know what? Maybe books with extremely unlikable protagonists just might not be for me. That might be what it is at the end of the day. I don't know. But guess what? When it comes to black media, this is why it's important for us to have a wide range of it. Because if we just decide to lump all black media, and not just black media, but media led by people who are mixed with black too, just as well, like Twitches, we are going to be in a world of hurt. It's like, okay, black media here and then everything else. No, there are so many different types of things that black people make. I wish people would get that, because I feel like so many people just view blackness as one thing and realize that there is so much that goes into it. There are books written by black authors that I adore that people cannot freaking stand. There are shows that are black led that I adore that people cannot freaking stand. And you want to know why? that's okay. It's just not for me. But I noticed that when it comes to the subject of blackness in media, I find a lot of black people, including myself, we can be very, very hesitant on when we're frustrated with something and how we just don't necessarily like it all that much, because we don't want it to come across as hating. Because I felt as if I was being a hater with this book, and I most definitely didn't want that, because I didn't want people thinking that I had vitriol towards another black woman. Absolutely not. That was not the case. But then again, my frustrations with these books are pretty valid, and you want to know why? Because I went and I read a whole bunch of reviews, and a lot of people said they felt the same way. So I was like, okay, it ain't just me. I pretended to like Twitches growing up because my friends did. To this day, it shocks people when I tell them that I'm not a fan of that film. Part of it has to do with me not being interested in the story about two long-lost sisters who were witches. Growing up, I felt like I was constantly told I needed to like this movie because it starred T and Samara. Because of all the high praise Lester received, I felt like I was being told that I had to like this book regardless on if it was catered to me or not. And this is off script, but when it comes to black literature, I think we need to start understanding that not every story written by a black writer is going to be for a black reader. We have different tastes for a reason. That is the reason why a lot of genres exist. For someone that's not necessarily big on the fantasy genre, there are lots of black writers out here that write specifically for black readers who are interested in fantasy. I think what makes me so hurt with Lester is because I really enjoy slice of life books. I enjoy slice of life stories, and that's what this one was. And I felt like I was the targeted audience for it, and it just wasn't for me. I am fully aware that not everything is going to be made for me, but that's why it's important for people to talk about these things just as well, because often at times when people talk about shit they don't like, as much as y'all don't want to admit it, they are often valid. Like recently, there has been a discussion regarding Avatar: The Last Airbender and why people don't like anyone a part of the Fire Nation, specifically those that contribute to the problem going on in the series. I am a Ty Lee stand down, but if somebody told me that they don't like her because she was a part of Azula's little clan and hurt people, I understand. Y'all know, I love Natalie with all my heart, but I understand why people don't like her. And you know, so much of Natalie's character not being the best it could be has to do with the fact that she has a terrible voice actor and Thomas don't know how to write women, but the point still stands. And I'll even throw Penny Rolling in here just as well. I love Penny, and part of that has to do with the fact that she is a black woman cartoon. We don't see this that man much, okay? She's not like a mother figure or a teacher figure or anything. She is one of the few black women in animation that is just like, you know, a woman that's not necessarily connected with, you know, teaching or being a mom. She was failed horribly by this show, and that's part of the reason why I like her, because I saw the potential there and I felt like her character deserved much better. But seeing what she did and seeing the kind of man that she stood beside, I understand why people don't like her. For the record, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone say that they don't like Penny, but if someone told me that they didn't like Penny for these reasons, I understand completely. Hi, this is off topic. I'm inserting this right here as I'm editing this section, but I just want to let y'all know that when you come around to accepting that not everybody is going to like what you like, but not necessarily like what you like, realizing that there are valid reasons for people not liking the same shit that you like, you will forever be free of, like, you know, wanting acceptance from people. And what I mean by that is, last year I have came to the conclusion that if somebody doesn't like me, that's not my problem. That is just like on them. That has nothing to do with me. And if somebody doesn't like my favorite like fictional characters or just my favorite things in general, that's not my problem. And when you realize that that shit has nothing to do with you, you will be free. This is the reason why I no longer argue with people over fictional characters or whatever or whatnot, mainly because I just feel like it's a waste of time and energy. And my patience runs very, very thin now. As you guys know, that I've been dealing with a lot personally. But when I realized that I don't necessarily have to go back and forth with people over media, because you know what? If they're not having a bigoted ass opinion about something, it's often valid and I don't care. Like, people come in my comment section all the time telling me about how they don't like my work. And you know what? They're allowed to feel that. People tell me that they feel like I talk too slow. People tell me that they feel like I could do better with my editing. People tell me about how they don't like the way I speak. And when I realized that there is nothing that I can do about that, I was just set free and I was kind of at peace with it. One thing I have learned as I have gotten older is that if somebody doesn't want to like something, you know, like if they aren't being ignorant for a valid reason, their point stands. Maybe it's because I'm a sensitive bitch, but I cried when I realized I didn't like this book. And I thought about it more and more, and I continued to get irritated because everywhere I went, I saw people talking so highly of this book. And I started to feel like my intelligence was being questioned simply because I didn't get it. You know what? I probably didn't get this book. And that's fine. It's not for me, and I will leave it at that. Thank you all so much for watching this video. This was the first video of the year, and I actually was extremely nervous to make it. I'm sweating. I'm mad because I'm wearing this Karen cosplay somewhere, and I gotta have to wash it before I go because I've just been sweating up something in this. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoy it. This was a bit different than my usual content, especially like the subject matter. It's funny because I read this book and Addicted around the same time, and I enjoyed Addicted a lot more than I did that. And it, you know, stories about black women making bad decisions, but in Addicted she realized she had problems, she went and fixed them. Luster, she didn't. It was a very interesting time. That week where I spent the week reading those two books were very, very interesting. And I'm over here like, Emily Ratajkowski is the person that recommended me this book. I'm kind of frustrated with that, but no, I'm not gonna put that against her. She recommended a lot of other great books, by the way, in that episode, so I do want to make sure I can get around to like actually talking about the ones that she recommended that I really did enjoy. Okay, so I decided that once a month I am going to be doing a Q&A on my channel, and this Q&A I had it open to everybody. I went on my Instagram story and I was like, hey you guys, I want to answer some questions, yada yada yada, please leave them down below. But after this, all Q&As are going to be Patreon only, and they're going to be Ko-fi only. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into these questions. What are your plans for 2024? Just to keep creating, just to keep making things for the most part. I don't want to put like too much pressure on myself this year, but for the most part, I just want to make sure that I'm still creative and, you know, doing the things that I enjoy. I also want to do a lot better though about keeping up with my studies for school, because I've been struggling, but I'm okay. I have been doing a bit better this week with making sure I'm up to date with all my schoolwork and whatnot. So yeah. The next question is, how long does it take to make a video? Okay, when it comes to like my bigger videos, like the one that I am making here, I'd say usually about like 3 days. It usually takes about 3 days to make like a bigger video like this, sometimes longer if it requires me to do more reading and research and whatnot, but I'd say like a good 3 days. When it comes to my videos that are completely off script, not off script, but like no script whatsoever, like tier list ranking videos and all of that, those usually can get done within like 5 hours. But my video making process is not like extremely long like a lot of these other creators out here. It is absolutely nothing wrong with that, with them taking longer. But yeah, I notice it's just a lot stressful on me if it takes me less time to make videos. So yeah. Okay, next question. What is your astrology big three, if you mind sharing? I'm a Sagittarius sun, Pisces moon, and Aquarius rising. So yeah, those are my big three. Anything you want to improve on in 2024? Main thing is just my comic, the Justice for Nino comic. I really want to do a lot better with just making sure I'm updating the comic too. And of course the art is going to improve the more you work on it. So I already know that I am going to be improving with drawing this year, but I just want to do better about making sure I am updating that comic when I want to, making sure that I have myself on schedule with that. Hope the comic most likely is not going to be updated again until next month, mainly because I already kind of have it set in stone of everything that I need to take care of for January. So yeah, the comic is just not in the schedule at the moment, but it will most likely be back there next month. What are some cosplays that you want to do? I really want to, like I mentioned this in my, I mentioned this on my Instagram, I think, in my birthday Q&A, but I really want to do a lot of Tiff Christ from My Life as a Teenage Robot. I really want to do a lot of her outfits. That is like my, I usually kind of like pick one person and want to do all their outfits. That one, I have some Howling Wolf stuff that I plan to do, and I plan to do like more different variations of Natalie, of course, as usual. I do plan to do Penny Rolling finally. I do want to do more I want to do the life lessons with Urimichi Onisan characters, the outfits that they wear on the TV show. Most definitely want to do that. And there's like some more Jujutsu Kaisen cosplays that I want to do. But the one that, it's like a manga I've been reading that's like Love is Hard for Otaku. I really been wanting to do some cosplays from that just as well. One of my favorite indie animated shows. My favorite indie animated show at the moment would have to be The Miraculous Office AU. It is a fan series from Miraculous Ladybug. It's told in like The Office, like the way the show format is for The Office, like a mockumentary. Yeah, that is my favorite indie production. How do you come up with your cosplays like Y2K? There's too much going on in my brain. I'm not even joking. There's always something going on up here, and I will literally find a fictional character. Like I said with Tiana, when I did like Y2K Tiana, I was like, I'll do that, but I'll figure out how she would have dressed in the year 2003. And that's just kind of like how I go about it. I try to make stuff make sense, because I was like, I can most definitely see Tiana wearing like a long maxi skirt, but like a top that still shows skin, if the Princess and the Frog took place in 2003. I put thought into things like this. Because I know like not all Y2K looks the same. That's something that I wish a lot of people would understand, but they ain't gonna get it. What are characters that you have always wanted to draw but you never find the time to do so? Yo, Evie from Descendants. I've actually had some like stuff in my sketchbook of Evie for the longest, and I just never finished it. But speaking of that, yeah, Evie most definitely is going to be somebody that I plan to draw more of in 2024, because I adore Evie. I really do. I've been wanting to draw like Ben and Evie stuff too, period. But Evie for sure. I'm really surprised that I have not done more Evie stuff. What are your thoughts on Nobara from JJK? Love your videos, thank you. I love Nobara. I don't care. She's like she's like a girl feller, and I love her. She is just adorable. That is my daughter right there. Like she's just so funny to me. Like I adore Nobara. Gigi, you gonna pay? No, it's Gege. I keep calling him Gigi, but his name's Gege. I'm like, you're gonna pay for what you did to Nobara, because what was that? I really feel, okay, this is a hot take. This might be a hot take about JJK, but I feel like when Gege has no idea what he wants to do with his characters, at a certain point, he just like K-words them off. And I was like, I really feel like he didn't know what else he wanted to do with Nobara here, because the way he just got rid of her like that was just foul. And like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and tell a writer how they should, you know, go about their story and whatnot. But a lot of these choices that Gege be making with like getting rid of a lot of characters is frustrating, because word on the street is that I haven't gotten to this part yet. I need to, mainly because Utah comes back, and Utah, we stand over here. Word on the street is that JJK goes downhill after the Shibuya incident, where they got rid of a lot of the really like popular characters or whatnot. So make what you do of that. Favorite manga? Ooh, a favorite manga. I'm dying because this person, love your content by the way, thank you. Their profile picture is Yuta. My favorite manga is, okay, my favorite anime is Ojamajo Doremi. Like, But that doesn't have a manga. My favorite manga would have to be Gangsta by Koski. That is my favorite manga. Me and Warwick Arcangelo are married. I am Mrs. Arcangelo, okay? That is husbando right there. And someone said, what's a piece of media that gets too much hate and one that gets undeserved love? Now, when you say like undeserved love, I feel like it's a bit of hypocritical to say that. But I'm being honest, Shake It Up was like one of my favorite shows growing up. And I feel like that show got hated on a little too much. Because it was actually pretty enjoyable. I love it. It was like one of my comfort shows. But I feel like people were just hating on it just to hate on it. But guess what? Dog with a Blog. Dog with a Blog really is one of those shows I feel like people just dog piled on because they didn't like the name of it. And they thought the name of it was weird or whatever. But yeah, Dog with a Blog is one that I felt like got undeserved like hate. It was, y'all, it was a cute little show. Nothing necessarily special about it, but it was adorable. But a show I feel like that got too much praise from Disney Channel. If we talk about shows, we can talk about movies specifically. Twitches is overrated. There, I said it. Alright, that concludes this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day, night, whatever time of the day you're watching. I'm just thankful that you watched the video with the ads on. Alright, thank you. Have a good night.
Now that you see, you should beware of the power of three. They come to fight as fast as they can. They're dangerous yet fabulous. Because the Utonium made them eschew. They are the colors of pink, green, and blue. They'll catch you in the blink of an eye and do it all before bedtime. They coming through and fighting, and everyone they're shocking. You know no one can stop them all because of the chemical X. They coming through and fighting, and everyone they're shocking. You know no one can stop them all because of the chemical X. The Powerpuff Girls will just blow your mind. Buttercup like villains 3 at a time. Bubbles will smile while kicking your butt, and Blossom will lead them out of their rut. Cherish and Powerpuff, 2 of a kind. Both wanna save the world before bedtime. From Townsville, Memphis, New York to LA, the Powerpuff Girls are just